Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Irish Sports Daily video from irishsportsdaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flammang, and today we are doing buy or sell Notre Dame defense. Now, if you missed my offensive version for this that I posted yesterday, you're going to find that on the Irish Sports Daily YouTube webpage that you're going to want to check out with a bunch of other content. Mike and Jamie did a show, like a war room last night, that talked about, answered some questions about the Notre Dame football team, looked at college football, the greater college football landscape at large. That's a really good show. We got some other stuff that practice clips, interview clips, some of our shows, our reaction shows, and that sort of thing. That's all going to be on youtube.com at Irish Sports Daily. Search Irish Sports Daily, hit subscribe button, hit the like button, get all of our content. And if you like this stuff, and if you've never been here before, never seen this stuff, if you like what you see, follow along, hit subscribe, and that's out of the way. Let's get right into this video. All right, so the first question, buy or sell that the defense is going to be elite in 2022. Now, this is one that I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say hold, okay? I didn't put it on the graphic or whatever because it's three things and it doesn't really look as good, right? But I'm going to say hold on this, right? Now, I don't want to poo-poo their performance against Ohio State, right? Holding Ohio State to 21 points in the horseshoe against an offense that many people thought would be one of the top offenses in the country, if not the top offense in the country, right? With the wide receivers they have, with the quarterback they have, and the running backs that they have. Holding them to 21 points is a big task, okay? That's not to be overlooked. That's not to be minimized or anything. That is, they did the job that they had to do to allow Notre Dame a chance to win the game, and so they should be applauded for that. And it's certainly a data point in the direction that this could be an elite defense, right? But there are things that we need to see first before we can truly call them elite, right? We need to see more havoc plays, right? Like 5.8% havoc plays against Ohio State. That is one of the lowest havoc rate numbers that we have seen for a Notre Dame defense in a very, very long time. All right. Now, remember, havoc rate is things like tackles for loss, sacks, passes broken up, interceptions, fumbles caused, that sort of thing. Right. Now, obviously, Notre Dame didn't force a turnover in the game against Ohio State. They only had one sack, one other tackle for loss. So 2 tackles for loss in the game. And to truly be an elite defense, you got to be doing that sort of thing, right? And the other thing when you watch the game back that we got to keep in mind is that while they slowed Ohio State down in the first half very effectively, and the beginning of the second half as well, once Ohio State kind of figured them out, they started to move the ball pretty consistently, right? And that's where the havoc plays come in, where Notre Dame needed a big play to get off the field at the end of the third quarter, and then the long 14-play, 95-yard drive that essentially sealed the game. They needed a big play. They needed a strip. They needed a sack. They needed a play that was going to take Ohio State off schedule and basically wreck the drive, and that never came, right? And for the second part of this, on the slide where it says pass rush has to be there, like the pass rush was not there consistently, right? They got a sack on what was, I think, the second offensive play of the game from Howard Cross, which was followed from a really good blitz from J.D. Bertrand, and then Maris Luafau came in and blew up the running back, collapsed the pocket. Howard Cross makes a really good move on the left guard, gets in for the sack, and that's, that basically ended the drive, right? And so that was something that we didn't see at the end of the game there. We didn't see people darting into the backfield. We didn't see collapsing pockets or that sort of thing. And so it's just like we need to see evidence of that before we can call this Notre Dame defense elite. And so while the game was a very good game from the defense, they did a great job. They really acquitted themselves well in a very tough situation. We need to see a little bit more from them before we call them elite. But it was definitely a step in the right direction, and they certainly started the season off on a very good note as far as what they can be in 2022. All right, so buy or sell that the secondary is much improved right now. This one's pretty easy, right? I think we're going to put this one as a buy. I do think it has improved. And part of the reason why I do believe that is because Clarence Lewis and Tariq Bracy played with more conviction and more confidence, right? And that's something that we really needed to see. Now, Tariq Bracy had a bounce back in 2021 from the 2022 season when he really had a loss of confidence and they had to basically pull him from the lineup, right? And 2020 was a very weird year with with COVID and everything. It was a very difficult season with quarantines and not being around the team and not being around the facilities and that sort of thing. Really made it difficult for a lot of players, and I think Tariq Bracy got caught up in that. 2021 was much better. In 2022, the way he started in the nickel spot, garnered the most snaps on the defense. It's 63 snaps. The next closest was 51, right? So Tariq Bracy went out there, was a very, very important part of the game plan in this game. And he showed itself with he had a bunch of tackles. He gave up 6 catches, but they were all short, right? 6 catches for 22 yards. That is you're giving up basically nothing there, right? That's under 5 yards per reception allowed. Okay. He had a tackle for loss against Jackson Smith and Jimba. He had a couple other tackles. I think he ended up with 4 tackles on the day. He had at least 2 other stops on third down, which forced punts, right? And so when you're doing that sort of thing, when you give up a reception between, it was like 3rd and 8, and I think 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 10, gave up a reception, but then tackled the receiver short of the sticks, forced a punt. That's almost like a breakup, right? Like that is a winning play that you are doing, right? So played a very solid game. And the same thing with Clarence Lewis, right? He gave up a couple of receptions, true, but he also had a breakup. He actually ended up I have him down for 2 breakups. Now the game copy or the official stats doesn't. One of the breakups on the crossing or on the curl route, they said it, for whatever reason, they didn't give it to him, but he was there on the receiver's back and might basically knock the ball away, right? And then we all remember the long pass that they had on the out and up to Ibuka, where they tried to get him on a little out and up, and Clarence Lewis was right there, broke up the play. I highlighted that play on Twitter, so if you go to my Twitter feed at Greg2126, you can check that out there. A+ play from Clarence Lewis, right? And I think that beyond just the way that they played, I think they both played with more conviction, with more confidence, and that was something that I thought was lacking, especially from Clarence Lewis last year. He didn't seem to be totally confident in what he was doing on a game-to-game basis. We saw him have some rough games. He had some tough matchups. Again, another tough matchup in this game. Stepped up, played really well. Okay. I think that secondary does need more from Cam Hart right now. He came into the game a little banged up. There was reports that he had a hamstring problem. And look, if you have a hamstring problem against this wide receiving core, you're going to be a little bit tentative, right? You're going to be a little bit cautious. And I think we saw that from him. Wasn't one of his stronger games. He gave up the touchdown on a play where they're not even really trying to throw a touchdown pass, right? It's like a deep out. It's not a shot play. It's not a play that they're planning to score. It's just they want to move the chains. He got a little out of position, peeked into the quarterback when he really shouldn't have. Let the receiver kind of get out of touch with him. The receiver caught the pass, turned it up for a touchdown. That's a play he wants to have back, right? And Cam Hart's better than that, and he's a better player than that. So, but he did rebound, right? Like he did have a breakup after that, and he made a couple of other good plays, right? So it's not like it was a total disaster from him or anything like that. But I do think that he expects more, and I think the defense expects more from him, right? He had a really kind of like a breakout season last year, and I think people expected him to take a step forward this year, and we didn't see that against Ohio State, right? So I think for the secondary to really reach its potential, then they need Cam Hart to be basically the best corner on the team, and I don't know that was the case on Saturday. Now, it's one game. It's he's nursing an injury. It's totally understood. And like I said, he didn't play terrible, but I think there is another level for him, and I think that he can reach it. And then Ben Morrison and Jaden Mickey, right? Like I think those 2 guys, what Notre Dame continues to get from them on a week-to-week basis is going to be a big part of this secondary and how improved they are, right? I think they came out and acquitted themselves well, especially Ben Morrison. Jaden Mickey was unfortunately a part of one of the biggest plays in the game on the negative side. when he gave up the post for a touchdown on the double safety blitz, right? It was tough cover, tough situation for him to be put in because he's not normally a nickel, right? He's usually been playing on the outside. They put him inside at the nickel in one of the biggest spots. I think it was his only snap at nickel. And look, a good team found him, and then they took advantage. So, but I think, the more that he plays, the more confidence he gains, and the more playing time he gets, he's just going to get better and better. Same with Ben Morrison, who was targeted a couple of times, had a nice breakup on a crossing route, gave up a few receptions, or I don't want to say a few, a couple receptions. Nothing big, right? Nothing, no explosive plays or anything like that. But they're both going to show moments where they're freshmen and growing pains and that sort of thing. But the ceiling is very high for those two. So, and then you factor in, I think the safeties, a solid game from all of them, not spectacular. Brennan Joseph had the huge hit on Jackson Smith-Njigba, which actually didn't knock him out of the game. It was a hamstring issue that he was dealing with, so it had nothing really to do with the hit, maybe the play itself. But it was still a kind of a nice thing to see, the aggressiveness and that sort of thing. So he played well. I thought Ramon Henderson played well. GJ Brown, played a lot of snaps, and Houston Griffith was also a part of it, right? So those four safeties got on the field a bunch. Of the four of them, the lowest snap count was 30 snaps, I think, from Ramon Henderson, but they all played within 30 and 33. And Brandon Joseph was in the 50s, I think. So those four are going to be the main safeties. And so, no explosives given up from the defense aside from the out route from Cam Hart. And I think it was just a really strong game all around. So I would say buy on the secondary being improved in 2022. Buy or sell. This is going to be the last one. The defense can carry the team like in 2012. This is going to be a sell at the moment, right? And if anything, it should probably be a hold because we're not really sure. There's a lack of playmaking that is a factor there, and that we saw a bunch of solid play. We didn't see playmaking, especially on a consistent basis, right? Like when you're not creating havoc, you're not being playmakers, you're not forcing turnovers and that sort of thing. And obviously, the 2012 defense was very good at that, right? Linebackers need to be more active, right? So we need to get more from Maris. We need to get more from J.D. Bertrand, Jack Kaiser, and Bo Bauer. Right now, it's not an act. When I say active, I mean darting into the backfield and making plays there, right? Like these guys, it's not like they're not active. They're not moving around. They're very active football players. But what I mean by that is they need to be more of a playmakers, right? They need to be having a greater effect on the game. Aside from a couple Maris blitzes where he blew up the running back and got he collapsed the pocket and created an opportunity for Howard Cross to make a sack. And then the other time, the same thing happened. The running back tried to cut him, and then he got hit by one of the linemen. 15-yard penalty for chop block. Beyond that, there wasn't a bunch of flash from Maris, right? His first game back from a very bad broken leg, so that's kind of understandable. But we need more there, right? We didn't really hear the name J.D. Bertrand. We didn't really hear the name Jack Kaiser, right? So we're going to need more from those guys. You can't just they need to be a strength of the team, right? And I think that they weren't bad against Ohio State by any means, but they weren't really difference makers, and so that's what we're going to need to see from them to be a force like the 2012 defense was, and be an elite defense, right? It's kind of flows into the first one here, the first question I had. And the stars need to be stars. They frankly just flat out need more from Isaiah Foskey and Jason Ademilola right now. It's a one game thing, right? And we don't know all that goes into it and that sort of thing. And with those guys have made plays in big games, and they've been key contributors for Notre Dame over the last 2-3 years. So we expect to see more from those guys, but we didn't really get that against Ohio State. So those guys, the stars need to be stars, and they're included in that. Isaiah Foskey's looking to break the sack record for the university, right? So we need a higher level of play for those guys, and that's what their expectation is, and I think that's our expectation. So That needs to be that's probably the biggest factor in, whether this team can carry an offense that may or may not be high powered in 2022. So that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. Once again, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you liked what you saw here. Jamie and I are going to be coming later today with a Hit and Hustle live show, talking about Marshall, talking about the team, talking about what we saw, wrapping up Ohio State, and looking forward to not just Marshall, but kind of the rest of the season. So tune into that. Get us in the comments. Let us know how you feel. Give it a comment on this video as well if you liked what you saw. Stay locked into irishsportsdaily.com. Like I said before, there's going to be a ton of content. We've got a ton of stuff on our YouTube page. It's really popping off. So with that, I will say I'll talk to everyone very